Hey YouTube, welcome back to part 2 of our examination of the Jake Lucky interview with Steak Eddie. In our last video, we left off with Jake asking Steak Eddie about whether or not Adin Ross was a brand risk. Now, to Steak Eddie's credit, he actually did not shy away from this question and decided to answer it in a pretty robust fashion. If you'd like to see the first part of this video, make sure you go back and watch part 1. It had a lot of really good information in it, and we really did examine some of the really cool things that Jake decided to ask Eddie and put him kind of on the spot for when it comes to what's going on with Steak and what they plan on doing moving forward. Today, we're actually going to be picking up with a question that Jake Lucky's counterpart Hunter had to ask Eddie as basically a follow-up to the whole Adin Ross thing. So buckle up, everybody, enjoy the second half of this video, and make sure that you get in the comments below and let me know what you guys think.
Can I ask a question real quick? Also, just to make sure we're doing some due diligence on the last question. I know people are gonna be a little wary about it. I'm gonna rewind to Adin for just a second, just as a follow-up. I feel like a lot of maybe let's call them kick naysayers would maybe look at the Adin situation, the situation being that he's on kick and has done some questionable things, and look at your answer and say, okay, so are you guys just okay with the things that he's been doing because it's been bringing you in traffic? It's gotten, by all means, Adin has brought so many eyes to the platform and gotten
very
noticed,
fair question, everybody. Very fair question.
A lot more eyeballs. And so is it like, okay, well, we're going to look the other way from the things that you've been doing, which have been pretty serious, pretty toxic, pretty awful stuff that, like, we've talked to advertisers that don't want to include Kick in deals right now because of that. We've talked to people who don't want to switch over to Kick because they don't feel safe because of Adin Ross's community.
Again, everyone, going back to the advertising thing that we were talking about a few ago, and also what I was just speaking about when it comes to different streamers who aren't really wanting to come over because of how much of a malcontent Adin Ross is.
So to speak to those people, like, what would you say to maybe like reassure them that, hey, just reassure them? I'm not gonna put words in your mouth, but like, that's what people are saying. So how would you respond maybe to those people?
Yeah, no, I think it's extremely reasonable doubts for them to have, right? It makes complete sense, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. We received the same feedback. You know, I think to reassure them, I think the biggest thing here is, you know, we're confident that we can pull this off, but at the same time, we have a lot to learn, right? We are figuring this out as a brand new player in the space. We have a lot of policy, a lot of new lessons to be learned in how.
And I'll have something to say on this one here in a second, everyone.
How to make sure that we can create a safe environment for people, and we are constantly adapting that. I think the policies that we are enforcing and the policies that we are looking to further enforce down the line are constantly adapting. It is a work in progress, right? You know, again, Kick is really young. It's been around for 6 months, so you know, we hear these complaints loud and clear. We understand we have to address them. We have to make sure that we create a safe environment. That is just simply how the internet is nowadays. You can't allow for that kind of behavior. But again, I think the most important thing to take from that is we are in communication, you know, specifically with Adin. We have spoken about the issues that have occurred, and I'd like to think that we can find a way forward where we can work very closely with Adin and not have these kind of issues. And I guess Adin's just one example out of many, right? There is many people that fall into the same category, and I'd like to think that a big part about how we want to proceed with guidelines is communication. I think a lot of platforms and social media go ahead and they kind of just ban people out of the blue and just remove their access and don't give them much explanation. We want to be a platform that puts communication first, and we like to think that by communicating and giving people a fair chance can sometimes lead to them, you know, making the correct change. I think just pulling a switch and banning someone's channel without even speaking to them isn't typically going to change the way they act.
So there is a lot to unpack with what Eddie just said. Now, first things first, I am going to take Eddie and Kick to task and say that what they said about us being new and learning and growing is simply bullshit. Not trying to be a jerk, not trying to give Kick any kind of flack, but I've done the same thing with Twitch. I'm going to do the damn same thing here. They knew better and what was going to happen with Adin when they signed him. There was no growing pains here. They knew they were taking a known quantity, they were plugging it into their venue, And they knew there was probably going to be some kind of fallout, even if before they did that, they talked to Aiden Ross and said, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. You need to approach it this way or that way. They knew what they were getting. They knew the landmine that they were throwing out and waiting to possibly go off at any moment. This seems like a horribly, horribly, horribly disingenuous thing for Steak Eddie to say. Now, do I believe that it's okay that they've been trying to talk to him towards the end of his comment there where, you know, they feel like they can try to help change people, try to drive them in the right direction? This is a very idealistic way for any platform to actually approach their creators, and I sincerely hope it works out for them. I think that I do respect what he was saying and not just pulling the plug on somebody, but maybe trying to approach them and maybe giving them another chance. But you still have to be in the mindset of how many strikes are too many strikes. He's done it once, and if he does it again, it's almost as if he has to go. It doesn't matter what he brings to the platform. What does matter is the optics that it brings to the platform and the opinion that it actually lets others come to when they see that someone like this continually has a place to spit their hate. It's not very good, and it's something that they need to seriously consider moving forward. And as I said, I truly think that this whole we're young and we're learning thing is a little bit of a smokescreen and not necessarily something that Eddie should have said. I do feel like they all knew this going in, and they knew the people they were signing, and they knew what might come with them. I hope that this isn't the case, but it more than likely is. My gut's telling me that it's absolutely what's been happening, and they're using it all for the there is no such thing as bad press. Our last bit is going to be the relationship between Steak and Kick. This is actually a pretty big sticking point for a lot of people as well. It seems to be a pretty well-known thing that Steak is a pretty big backer of Kick. There are going to be people who are invested in both, and this is definitely an issue for a lot of people who have a certain moral guideline in their lives and whether or not people should be streaming on Kick. So in this next series of comments, you're going to see Jake asks Eddie exactly what the relationship between the two entities are, and I will be giving you my opinion on it as soon as we're done, like I always do.
I mean, I guess we could probably lead off before we get into that question of clarifying for the people at home. Everyone's been asking the question, what is the relationship between Kick and Steak?
Everyone.
Yeah, so a lot of people say that Kick is owned by Steak. Kick isn't definitely not owned by Steak in that capacity.
That
we
seems
share
sketchy.
some similar shareholders. You know, myself included. I've been very vocal about that from day dot. You know, I was just speaking about it on my stream earlier. I was the first person to ever do a live stream on Kick when it was actually called Kick.live. And that was a Steak stream, right? I've been very, very open about my relationship with Kick from the get-go. There's other shareholders of Steak that are also involved in Kick, but then again, there's also shareholders that aren't involved in either. In Kick and Steak, you know, together. So it is, of course, it's a different structure. It's a different entity. It's a separate entity, most importantly. But
A little too many ums and ahs in there for me to actually believe everything that Eddie's saying right now, as much as I would love to believe him.
You know, there are individuals, key individuals that are, you know, heavily involved in both, and we're not trying to hide that by any means. We never have.
Oh boy. So what are we getting out of this one? What we're getting right now is what I would like to call a bunch of corporate doublespeak. We have somebody who is probably trying to hide the fact that the overwhelming majority of people who are currently supporting Kick are definitely also involved in Steak. Now, is this something that anyone can outright prove right now? Potentially not. Maybe they are two completely different entities. Maybe they are existing outside of any kind of entanglement with one another. But I am definitely of the opinion that there is a measure of stake money that's going into Kick to support the aforementioned subject that we talked about in terms of subsplits and a lot of the infrastructure that they currently have. I don't really see how with any of the money that Kick is actually bringing in, I can't see that money actually covering the bills and supporting the site to a degree that it currently needs to. We'll see what happens as time goes on, but there's going to be a little bit more information here. Let's go ahead and dive in.
So, Jake, you mind if I chime in for a second?
Yeah.
Just as you kind of answered it in that question, but just so people don't get confused, just to ask directly, a lot of people kind of have observations of, you know, down the line, Kick is going to be showing Steak advertisements. You're going to see it on the side, maybe even just see it in like pre-rolls or mid-rolls or whatever it is. So is there ever a world where Steak advertisements would be featured on the site? And if they would have more of like, if they'd have more of a priority maybe over other advertisements or larger frequency than other advertisements?
Listen, you can quote me on this right now. Similar to how I said we're never going to take away the 95.5 sub split, we will not start running steak ads throughout Kick in the form of pre-rolls or mid-rolls or any of those kind of advertising methods. We're not going to do that.
I'm going to put out a very confident, very heartfelt bullshit on that one, everyone. We're going to see how that one pans out as time goes on. But yeah, I feel like that is no. I'm going to talk more about that here in a second.
That would be I don't think it would be a conflict of interest. I think, obviously using Amazon as an example, right? They advertise their products on Twitch, that's fine. But I think just because of the community sentiment, we would never want to do that. I think a big part about Kick is listening to the community, understanding what they're concerned about, trying to be receptive. And by all means, if we started doing that, I think that would cause, a lot more problems than what it's worth. Steak is, as it is, a successful business that doesn't need to have intrusive ads to continue working. So we won't be looking to do that at any point.
I don't know, fam. I don't know. So, do we believe what Eddie's saying here with Steak never actually running any ads on Kick, even though they are pretty intertwined with similar investors and probably some amount of backing? I'm of the opinion right now that as time moves on, they will eventually get more advertisers if they clean up their act, and I do believe that Steak will actually run some kind of ad on Kick. Do I find that reprehensible? Do I find it a conflict of interest? Do I find it to be as bad as what Eddie is stating here, trying to make it seem like it is? I don't believe so. To his point, you see Amazon run plenty of ads on Twitch, and they have literally no problem doing it. Now, do they want to keep it out because it could look bad to some people and basically play into everything that people have been saying about Kick? Yes, absolutely. But looking at it from the outside in and knowing what I know about business, every successful business I have ever seen or even been involved with will leverage every advantage that they have at any given point in time. This would be one of those advantages. To say that Steak will never run an ad for it on Kick seems disingenuous again at best, because like Eddie said, he runs a successful business with Steak and he wants to see it become more successful. Why would he not do that? It definitely does not make sense to me, and I truly do not believe that over time, Steak will not run ads on Kick. It's going to be bound to happen. Steak is definitely, in my estimation, supporting the 95.5 sub split, and to not want to get some of that money back through whether it's advertising and roping more people into the gambling, I can't necessarily see that being the case. To say that it's never going to happen, just like he said, it's never going to be taken away for the 95.5, I don't know if that's those are promises that he can actually keep right now. It seems crazy that he's doing it. It seems absolutely insane to me that they're trying to make these big, bold statements. I can appreciate where they're coming from because they're truly trying to get out there and get more people in. But this one just seems a little bit like, I don't really think that's going to be the case. So that's going to conclude the three major points that I wanted to go over when it came to the Jake Lucky and Steak Eddie interview. What do y'all think? Do you think they'll actually be able to keep that 95.5 split as time goes on without actually running more ads, whether they're Steak or not? Do you think Aiden Ross is still their biggest problem? Because I certainly do. I can't imagine people going over there, a lot of people not going over there actually, until he is either gotten rid of or he definitely shows a huge amount of personal growth in a very short amount of time. This was a really fun one to go through. It's been an amazing few weeks in the content creation space in terms of being able to decipher a lot of the things these two CEOs are saying and the moves these platforms are making. And I truly hope that it's all ultimately for the benefit of people like me and some of you out there who stream and use these products. One can only hope that they continue to make the changes that are going to be beneficial to the people using them, and that all of us get to benefit from it when it seems like Twitch has had it cornered for so long. Tell me what you think in the comments, everybody. Like, subscribe, come back again for the next episode. I have no idea what we're going to go over next week, but this one's been a lot of fun, and I truly hope to have more discussion with you all in the future. Have an awesome one, guys. We'll see you on the next one.